Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how you can get the most time, save the most time and money when you hire an attorney. These steps are going to help you really get the most benefit for hiring an attorney. We all know that attorneys are not necessarily the cheapest thing in the world to pay for. And unfortunately, there is not many insurances that actually cover them. So most of the time you're having to pay out of pocket for your attorney. So we're going to give you the tips and ways that you can make sure that you're saving that money and saving that time, getting exactly what you need and being a better, happier consumer of legal services. If you're new here, my name is Taylor Darcy from Think Legal, where I help you create the business of your dreams. So welcome. Also, we go live every Monday through Friday, except holidays, at 11 a.m. So if you stop on by at that time period, don't forget to hit subscribe and hit that bell icon to make sure you're notified of when I go live for future videos. But we are here to help you and to answer your questions about business. So let's get started. Number one, and this one is, with an attorney-client relationship, it's not unlike other significant relationships that you'll have in your life. And the reason for that is simply that they are the ones that are going to, depending on the matter, have more intimate details about you than perhaps anybody else. I mean, your significant other, yes, perhaps your kids about certain things, but these are details that you're going to need for us to give you the best outcome, depending on the matter. You need to come forward with, you need to be as prepared as possible. So the way that you can do this is writing out any questions ahead of time and emailing them to your attorney before you meet with them, or before you accept an email in response, because they can give a quicker turnaround and they have them written down so that they don't forget anything and they don't misspeak. So that's number one. You want to come prepared. The other part of it is your attorney can prepare for the answers instead of just kind of going off previous cases or off the cuff, right? Because they're able to see the questions that you have, can research matters of law, and can give you a better idea of what you're facing, especially if something is unique. Now, that isn't always necessary and isn't always the case, but you don't know what they need to give you the best answer. So the best thing I can tell you is to come prepared with your questions already written out, preferably emailed to the attorney ahead of time. If we're still doing the virtual thing, that's always better so that we can sit there and prepare, and you'll get the most out of that initial meeting or any other type of meeting that you're going to be having with your attorney. The next thing, and I know this is going to sound funny, but by limiting the number of times you email or call, you're going to get, number one, you're going to get the best service possible. The clients that are emailing a lot, are constantly calling. It makes it more challenging to get work done for the other clients that you have. The other part of this is that if you, at all possible, schedule a phone call rather than just calling, because then they can set time aside to answer your questions and be able to give you the best answers possible. Remember, we're about saving time and money, and both of those are inextricably related when it comes to attorneys. So you want to make sure that you're doing what you can to give the attorney to be able to do the best job they can, right? So that's why I was talking about your relationship outside your spouse or significant other is very important as an attorney. The next thing that you can do is be as truthful and forthcoming as humanly possible. I mean, blunt, darn, flippin' honest. And the reason why is that if you hem and haw and hedge and don't tell us the truth, or you don't give us all the details because you think we're judging you, first of all, we're not judging you, because we don't. That's not what we do. We are advocates. We are not the judges. We are here to help you to solve your problems, not judge you. And I know I can speak for me, and I can speak for many attorneys that I have worked with and many attorneys that I come in contact with. We are not here to judge you. We are here to help you, and we are here to make sure that you get the best representation possible. And being honest gives us the best opportunity to do that for you, because if we know exactly what we have to work with, then we can be better advocates for you. The other part is you have to remember that anything you say, regardless of if you're in an attorney-client relationship, you're covered by attorney-client privilege. Now, it isn't like exhaustive that everything always will forever be private or privileged, but there are some exceptions to that. We're not going to go into those, but that whole confidentiality part gives you, by protecting you, you can be as forthcoming and honest as possible with your attorney to be able to give him or her the most information to make the best decisions and to guide you in whatever matter that you're trying to do. The next thing that you want to do is you want to gather and provide every piece of possible documentation that you can think of, because you don't know what's relevant and what's not. And sometimes certain facts will help you and certain facts will hurt you, but it's always better to have the cold hard everything out in front, so that as an attorney I can evaluate each fact of each situation to be able to give you the best possible outcome given those facts and obviously the law. By having everything together, if you forget something, yeah, that happens and we understand that. That's not it. But do your absolute best to remember everything and gather everything and bring it so that when we're evaluating it, we've got everything that we need in order to evaluate it. If you leave something out, it makes our job a lot more difficult, and we could end up giving you the wrong information based upon the facts that you provide us, which is going to end up bad for everybody. So it's in your best interest, by providing all of these documents as quickly as possible to your attorney so that they can make sure that they're giving you the information that they need. And you want to do this at the beginning. That's another very important part. You don't want to wait any longer than necessary, because really it just doesn't work as well. I mean, we can fix a lot even midstream, but if you forget a crucial detail or a crucial document, and then we have to go back and figure out how to fix it, it's going to cost more money to do that. It's just how it is. And I know you don't want that. And as attorneys, yes, that's what we get paid for, but at the end of the day, we would rather you be happy than have to worry about that. The next thing, you want to make sure you're patient. I know this sounds like, well, how does that help with me, time and money? But when you're patient and you're willing to give that part of you, okay, patience is a virtue, it very much is. You're respecting the fact that the attorney has other clients, and he in turn or she will give you better service that way. And not because he's intentionally or she's intentionally doing it, simply because if they're going from emergency, every client has an emergency, then it just decreases the amount of resources available to each person. That it's not that they're going to do a bad job intentionally or that they're going to make a mistake intentionally. It's just that when everything's an emergency, then nothing's an emergency. And if every client is in an emergency mode all of the time, then it really puts a strain on that relationship, and the attorney is going to start to resent you for making those choices to be impatient and to make everything an emergency. And then the relationship starts deteriorating at that point, because if you're impatient, then it strains the relationship, especially when I know very few attorneys that screw around. Like, we work on things and we're diligent and we pay attention to the dates. We pay attention to the work that needs to be done. So it's very rare that you run into an attorney that just blatantly blows stuff off. And I don't like the term bugging, but if you're excessively interrupting, then it means that he or she can't fix those issues as well, because they're constantly getting interrupted by, imagine, 30 people doing that all the time. So I'm not suggesting that you don't have contact with your attorney or that you shouldn't, but emailing them and, following up in an hour is not the best way to get the best service possible, unless it truly is an emergency. And there are very rare emergencies in law. it's not like your finger's gonna get cut off in legal stuff. If you're in jail, I mean, everything, the justice system takes a long time. So it's not a fast process. If you've put it off, if you procrastinated, that's a different matter entirely. A famous quote or a phrase that I like is, lack of planning on your part doesn't automatically constitute an emergency on my part. And that speaks very highly to, especially in the service industry where I've worked for many years, not just legal, but service in general, where people will not plan, will screw up, will make bad choices, and then expect me to fix it all. And, I'm sympathetic to that. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, it makes it harder for me to fix things because of those difficulties that you're making it extra difficult when it's already difficult, especially in law. The next, and I don't want to say last, because these are just the top things that you can do to save time and money, but you want to make sure that you are completing the client intake form with the attorney. That's key information that your attorney needs in order to give you the facts that these are specific questions for their facts that you want to make sure that you're giving. And we can then give more specific answers. If you're vague or broad or too random, then it makes it a lot more difficult for us to answer those questions. So the more specific you can be with your documentation, with your facts, with your attitude, with everything, and respecting the attorney's time, the better outcome you're going to be and the better relationship that you're going to have between you and the attorney, because you're going to build that trust relationship that you're going to have. And, court cases can go on for years. Depending on the transaction, it can be a long-term relationship that you're starting. So you really want to start the relationship, do the best that you can by putting your foot forward in that relationship. And that's true of any type of relationship. When you're dating someone, you're putting your best foot forward in the beginning, right? You're trying to make sure that there's that know, like, and trust factor that goes into dating. It's not dissimilar to what you're going through in an attorney-client relationship, but the difference is you're paying them for the service, right? So there are differences, but the idea being that you really want to make sure that you're not, and I say this almost every video because it applies every video, but don't be penny wise and pound foolish. If you're not willing to spend money to help get your attorney, depending on the case, depending on the matter, this is a blanket statement, but if you're not willing to spend the money to have the best outcome possible, you can't then expect the attorney to give you, he or she is going to do the best that he can or she can, given what you're able to do. But if you're constantly complaining about how expensive it is, then and I'm sensitive to that, right? I listen to my clients and I try to curb expenses. So I'm going to have a different strategy when you're complaining about a bill than if you're not. So if you're hamstringing the attorney by complaining about bills and by his or her responsibility is to win the case, if that's what you want. But you have to be prepared to back him in that pursuit. And I'm not suggesting that attorneys should gouge you or charge you too much money. That isn't my point. I'm simply saying that if you're constantly complaining about that and you're not willing to spend the money on them, then that makes it harder for us to do our job, because there are expenses. There are things that we need to be able to pay for in conjunction with whatever matter or case that we're working on. So you really want to make sure that you're not, it's important to be frugal, but don't hurt your case by being penny pinching. And in law, as I said earlier, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So there's a lot we can fix before that otherwise you would struggle with. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to leave them below. I'll answer them as time permits. Don't forget that to subscribe and like. I go live every Monday through Friday except for holidays, and we'll see you later.